Let me tell you something about humiliation. Real, public, pants around your ankles humiliation. Not the kind you get from tripping over your own shoelaces at the grocery store or realizing your mic wasn't muted on a Zoom call. I'm talking about the sort of humiliation that hits so hard you can actually hear the thud as your carefully stacked house of cards collapses in front of a live audience. That's exactly what happened to Judith Gutierrez, our oh-so-fearless HOA president, where she tried to tear down the one thing in our neighborhood actually built to last. A stone wall, yes, but really so much more than that. Now, before I get ahead of myself, let me back up a sec. Name's Raymond Cook. Been living quiet out here in Meadowbrook Hill for a solid 15 years. The guy who nods at neighbors, keeps his grass tidy, and generally minds his own business. What most folks didn't know was that after my day job pushing pixels as a software engineer, I'd sneak out to my garage and lose myself in stonework. Real stone masonry. Not the fake stuff you see in DIY videos, but techniques I learned on muddy hillsides in Scotland and sun-baked quarries in Italy. My garage was packed with chisels, mallets, and gadgets most people would mistake for medieval dental equipment. But for me, it was just another Saturday. So when the concrete retaining wall out front started crumbling, chunks falling off, sidewalk looking like a construction zone, I figured, why not build it right? Took months to plan it, driving 2 hours each way to a quarry where I picked every stone like I was building my own miniature cathedral. The new wall matched the old in height and function. Just, actually looked good and wouldn't break your ankle if you tripped over it. I got my permits, checked city codes, even had the gas lines marked, thinking I'd covered all the bases. Turns out, I'd left one base wide open. Cue Judith, every HOA's favorite flavor of disaster. If you've never met a Judith, count your blessings. Imagine a woman in her 50s, hair helmeted into submission, strutting around in her I mean business blazer with a clipboard like it's a badge from the fun police. I was just laying the last capstones when I heard those heels, like the countdown to doom, clicking up behind me. "Excuse me," she started, not bothering with anything as trivial as "good morning. I need to speak with you about this unauthorized construction project." Her face said she'd already decided on the verdict before the trial even began. I tried to play it cool, wiped my hands, introduced myself, pointed to the city permits, but that just made her madder. "Permits from the city don't matter here," she snapped. "This is a planned community. We have strict guidelines. You needed HOA approval first." That's when she handed me a packet thick enough to serve as winter firewood, told me to fill it out, and declare my stone wall inappropriate for the neighborhood. Apparently, my little arts and crafts project, as she called it, was a threat to civilization. Let me tell you, I almost laughed. But there was something about the way she looked at that wall, all those hours of sweat and planning, and just dismissed it. I went from amused to pissed in a heartbeat. But instead of blowing up, I did what any decent, slightly nerdy craftsman would do. I went home and read the fine print. And man, those HOA rules. Pages of them, covering everything from what color you could paint your mailbox to what kind of grass you could plant. According to Judith, anything rustic was a no-go. I needed modern, consistent, boring. I tried to be reasonable. Scheduled a meeting, brought photos, explained the techniques, dry stone, fitted joints, drainage, the works. Judith didn't care. "It's about consistency," she said, "not value." She made it real clear. This wasn't about stone or concrete. It was about her being in control. No amount of logic was going to touch her fortress. What followed was pure HOA theater. First, a formal violation letter. Then threats of daily fines, $100 a pop. Next came the warning that they'd sue to have the wall removed, and I'd foot the bill. Each letter nastier than the last. Meanwhile, Judith would come by, measuring tape in hand, sniffing at the wall, writing notes about inconsistencies in the stone color or potential safety risks. She even claimed my wall might collapse and hurt someone, all because I didn't use mortar. I mean, this woman was fighting a one-woman war against common sense. Then, my neighbor Nathan, bless him, calls to tell me Judith's spreading rumors that my wall's going to fall over and that I'm just some stubborn, rogue homeowner. Suddenly, I was the villain in my own neighborhood. That's when I stopped playing defense. I called Andrea Ortiz, president of the Regional Mason Guild, a master craftswoman who taught me half of what I know. Explain the mess. She just laughed. Dry stone is stronger than most concrete, Raymond. I'd love to see her face. Next, I called Jeremy Peterson, my buddy from my coding days who turned into a real estate attorney specializing in HOA wars. He agreed to review the covenants and told me, Raymond, if she's making technical claims she can't back up, that's liability for them. Document everything. Turns out, Judith's pattern wasn't new. I started digging, talked to neighbors, listened to horror stories. She'd forced one old guy to rip out a garden gate because it was too ornate. Made someone repaint their house twice because the color looked different in the sun. She'd driven at least one resident to sell their house, just from sheer stubbornness. So, I went full chess mode. While Judith kept sending threats, I was setting up a professional assessment. Andrea agreed to visit, bringing 2 other Masons, and Jeremy would come too. Meanwhile, I noticed something in the HOA's own rules, a little clause about exceptional quality, traditional construction being eligible for special approval. The very thing Judith had ignored. Jackpot. I called another meeting. Walked in, handed her the highlighted clause. Judith waved it off, said it didn't apply, then in front of 2 witnesses called my work amateur at best. I made sure to write that down. On the big day, Judith showed up with her minions, standing guard like she was waiting for a crime scene crew. Then Andrea and the guild masters arrived, all business. For half an hour, they measured, tapped, checked the drainage, took photos, muttered technical terms. Judith tried to butt in. Andrea shut her down, polite but firm. Ma'am, this is master-level work. The wall's flawless. She explained the techniques, how every stone was fitted, how the whole thing was stronger than mortar, how the drainage meant it would last longer than most of the houses in the subdivision. Neighbors started gathering. One by one, people realized what they were seeing. Nathan piped up. That's Raymond's wall. He built it himself, every morning before work. Andrea looked at me. You built this? Where'd you learn? I told her, and she just shook her head. I've seen professionals with decades who couldn't do this. She turned to Judith. On what authority did you call this amateur work? Judith wilted, tried to say she was just enforcing the rules. But Andrea wasn't done. She addressed everyone. Ladies and gentlemen, this is not just acceptable, it's exemplary. The Regional Guild will be proud to use this as a teaching example. The crowd actually clapped. Judith's whole power structure crumbled right there, clipboard shaking in her hands. That's when Jeremy stepped in. Based on today's assessment, this wall clearly qualifies under your guidelines. We're requesting immediate approval and a formal apology for how this was handled. Judith's face, pale as the mortar she claimed to love. She tried one last time to assert control, but Jeremy made it clear, fight this, and the HOA gets sued for harassment and negligent enforcement. Andrea handed me a certificate, loud enough for everyone to hear. Mr. Cook, on behalf of the Regional Mason Guild, we recognize your wall as master craftsmanship. The crowd cheered. Judith? She stood there, frozen, as her reputation dissolved. A few days later, the board met without Judith. They approved my wall unanimously, canceled all fines, and rewrote their rules to require professional input for technical matters. Judith resigned the next week, blaming philosophical differences. Nobody was fooled. Janet Williams, a retired architect, took over as president. She brought sanity back, consulted experts, collaborated with residents, actually listened. My wall? It became a neighborhood landmark. The guild brought apprentices to see it. Even the local news did a feature. I picked up side gigs teaching stonework and restoring historic sites. The wall Judith tried so hard to erase ended up making the neighborhood stronger, closer, even a little famous. And Judith's legacy? Well, her little reign became a cautionary tale for HOAs all over town. Jeremy started getting calls from other boards asking how to avoid another Gutierrez incident. My wall's still standing, years later, weathered, solid, a little bit legendary. So what did I learn? That expertise and craftsmanship outlast bureaucracy every time. that sometimes standing your ground with skill and patience is all it takes to outlast the bullies. And that no matter how loud or intimidating the rule keepers get, the truth always finds its way to the surface, like a well-fitted stone in a wall built to last. Now, I got to ask, have you ever tangled with an HOA or a petty authority? What would you have done in my shoes? Drop your own story below. Let's hear about your victories, your disasters, your take on what's right, what's wrong, and what really makes a community strong. And hey, if you believe craftsmanship, real skill, and a little old-fashioned backbone still matter, go ahead, leave a comment, hit subscribe, and let's keep building something better together.